What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Talking Halos. I'm your host today, Jared Timms, and I'm joined alongside my co-host, my partner in crime, Nate Green. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Not doing too bad. Super excited to get some news to break.
Sure.
Actually, I already broke it. It's new. It's news. It's news. Angels signed a couple players.
Yeah, don't get anyone's hopes up.
No, I seem to do that for some strange reason. Anytime you see the Angels have signed, you go to the who have they signed, and low key, whenever it's me, you need to go ahead and know that I probably don't break anything big. It's just minor league stuff.
Yet.
Yeah, I've broken some big stuff. Just we'll see. Not a bad start here. We'll see.
Let's just move on.
We'll see. We'll see. So, as always, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast here at Talking Halos. Again, making us the best Angels podcast out there. If you could leave a review, subscribe if you're watching us here on YouTube. Pound that subscribe button for us. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we can do better. Let us know what we can do worse. Hopefully, we don't do anything worse. Haven't gone to that quote in a while. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm going to throw this out here now. We are looking, as always, for writers. I can't give you guys a lot. Can't give you guys anything. But if you want to get your name out there and write a little bit, would love to have you aboard. Already getting some fantastic articles out there. It's a great way to get a start into the journalism world. That's how I started. That's how a lot of people start, is just getting their name out there. I'm going to be honest here with you. So if you want to get your name out there, let us know. You can write a little bit. You can train under myself, Nate, Derek. We do some fantastic stuff. Brock as well, John, all that fun stuff. So without further ado, let's get this rolling. You don't need to follow us on Twitter or anything like that. We'll talk about it later. Angels make two rather big signings, Nate. Two big signings. How's that, huh? Couple big ones.
Again, get their hopes up.
One rather larger than the other. Let's go to the smaller one first. Angels Tuesday re-signed Jonathan Diaz to a minor league deal. He's made some starts at the major league level. Actually, honestly, hasn't been bad at the major league level. It's nothing special, but if you look at his stats, it's not horrible. He doesn't give up runs. It's a nice depth piece. I think that's all we have to say about that, correct?
Yeah, not really a long-term option in the rotation. Like, it's one of those guys where it's like, hey, we just need someone for one start. Great, you can do it, but really not a guy you want in the rotation for more than, one or two starts a year.
With that being said, I fully expect him to be the opening day number 5 starter. I'm kidding.
He's not.
Good depth. I've always liked Diaz. Like I said, he just does it all correctly. He doesn't do anything special. He doesn't have the overpowering fastball. Spots up, has decent off-speed pitch, and gets guys out, keeps the ERA down, keeps you in ball games, and that's all you really look for. So nice depth piece there. Another guy we want to talk to, the Angels signed former Cal State Fullerton Titan Justin Garza to a minor league / major league deal, half and half. I'm going to be honest here, I've never heard of that, and I've been around the game for quite some time. Me and Nate had to look it up, didn't know that was really a thing. Nate, actually, if you want to explain the half and half contract, go ahead and do it, because I feel like listeners don't even know what it is. If we haven't really heard of it, listeners probably haven't. So
I had to remind Jared that this is what he signed, actually. So I felt good about that one. No, so the split contract basically says this is how much he can make in the major leagues, this is what he makes in the minor leagues, and then depending on how many days he's in the major leagues, they are going to take the pro rate of that and give him that amount of money. So obviously, like, it gives him time to be in the minor leagues. It gives him time to be in the major league if he is able to make the roster. So it's nice because it allows him to be in AAA without having to DFA him. It looks like for the first send down, and then from there on out, it just kind of depends. So interesting. I know you want to talk about him a little bit more, so I'll let you, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Corresponding move to that is friend of the show, Kenny Rosenberg, was DFA'd. I'm surprised maybe he sticks around. I think that he sticks around with the Angels. Justin Garza, though, fastball is up to 97, usually sits 94 to 96. Good heater on that side of stuff, good arm action with it as well. Has a changeup that kind of is pretty nice, little more like a two-seam-ish, splitter-ish pitch, but a nice pitch at that. He has a slider that acts a little bit more like, actually, he has a cutter that is more of a slider, more of that horizontal break, and he's got the slider, which actually has the curveball break, more of a gyro ball. So 4-pitch mix there, very good stuff. Like if we were to look at his stuff plus, I'm sure it would be up there because it's good stuff. Granted, it doesn't throw a lot of strikes. I know, Nate, that you're gonna bring that up, and that is always a huge issue. But the Angels have done a fairly decent job with teaching guys how to throw strikes. I think that that's fair enough, right?
I don't know if that's fair. Who on the roster couldn't throw strikes that magically became able to throw strikes? I mean,
I'd have to look. I feel like the Angels.
Bachman was a control guy. Bush was a control guy. Like they've thrown the ball well. Silseth's still not exactly pinpoint control. Like, maybe a small upgrade from him, but nothing crazy. Detmers, that's what he does. Sandoval, Suarez, they haven't really changed from who they've been the last couple of years. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with you on that, where it's like, oh, the Angels can turn any pitcher into anything. Like, no, they've been able to teach some guys a slider and, give them an extra pitch and maybe make a pitch a little bit better. But I don't know if they've like turned anyone from being like, oh, this dude can't throw strikes to save his life, and now all of a sudden he's, one of the best strike throwers in baseball. Like that really hasn't happened. And that's an issue for me. Like it does help that he's going to pitch out of the bullpen, so you don't really have to throw as many strikes as a starter does, but it's an issue. Like the walk percentage is very, very high. I remember going to Cal State Fullerton games and watching him pitch, honestly. Like what the teams that he was on, like it's crazy to think of a Cal State Fullerton back in that time frame not being able to throw strikes, because they lived on throwing 2-seamers on the black, 4-seamers on the black, and then throwing off speed off of that. And like nothing was over the middle of the plate. Everything was on the black, maybe even a ball off the plate, and they would just get those calls every single night. And it was unbelievable. Like it was so fun to watch that pitching staff, and to see him now, he's throwing a lot harder, but not throwing as many strikes. That's going to be the issue, is like, can he throw strikes? He's got good stuff, but it's going to be very hard to make this bullpen, because there is a lot of good stuff. I mean, we talked about if Chris Rodriguez is healthy, excellent stuff. Austin Warren has shown he can pitch in the big leagues and put up good numbers. We've seen, we already saw that Estevez. We know there's Loop. We know there's Tepera. We saw Barriga come in and throw really well last year. We saw Quijada have a couple of hot months. So like, there's a lot of guys in this bullpen that. Oh boy. Oh yes, and I forgot your boy who throws the most strikes in the entire bullpen. You want to say his name, because I'll just let you do it.
Go ahead.
No. I'll let you do it.
I was just gonna say you forgot Jimmy Herget.
I know. That right when I saw your face, I was like, yeah, I know, I forgot Jimmy Herget. But so yeah, there's a bunch. I was thinking stuff wise. I was thinking like,
that's the best stuff in the bullpen. The most okay, fine. Stuff wise, most appearances on pitching them goes to Jimmy Herget.
Sure, but stuff wise, I was thinking like
that should be a stat.
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot of guys in that bullpen, and a lot of them throw strikes. Like when C-Rod's on, he's around the zone. We already said Jimmy Herget throws a lot of strikes. Loop and Tepera, they make too much money to even think about losing a job.
We're talking strike throwing, and you bring in money. Come on.
Yeah, of course. I have to. Estevez, same thing as Loop and Tepera. Those three guys, like, they're never going to lose jobs. So like those jobs aren't even a possibility. So you're looking at about 5 jobs open in the bullpen, and we just mentioned a bunch of guys that throw strikes and to have good stuff. So it's going to be really hard for him to make the club out of spring without some injuries. But if he can figure out how to throw strikes in AAA, like it could be a good signing.
You're spending a lot of time on somebody who you think isn't going to make the team out of spring training. So
I don't.
This is definitely somebody I think we need to watch, because Nate clearly is on one with this guy. I like it. I think his stuff's good. 4 pitches coming out of the bullpen. I would assume we see some type of not repertoire change, but pitch usage change with Garza. Primarily relied on the heater. I'm just letting you know.
I'm just saying, it's not like he came from a place that really knows how to pitch anyway. Like Cleveland, they don't even pitch well. Like, what are we talking about?
Then we spent too much time on Justin Garza and Jonathan Dias. Let's get on to what we really want to talk about. Come on, man. Let us have some. Justin Garza, the California kid. I don't know if he's from California. Cal State Fullerton kid. I would assume he is from California.
He is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, he's he went to the Bonita? No,
Yes.
I don't know where. Yeah, Bonita.
I believe that's where it was.
Yeah. That's not right because someone's gonna get us on that.
I'll double check as you go into this next one. It was like Gar Bonita, but yeah.
Regardless, Angels make a couple signings, create a little bit more depth all around, especially in that rotation and in the pen. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's get on to what we kind of wanted to really talk about. We had a couple signings, so we wanted to break those guys down for you. Hall of Fame ballots. Hall of Fame's out. Angels. There's a couple Angels on there. One rather interesting than others. Actually, there's a couple Angels on there that are interesting rather than others. Of course, as we look through this, Bobby Abreu, Francisco Rodriguez, Torrey Hunter is on this list, as well as John
Don't forget the man,
Lackey.
the myth, the legend.
Dude, there's a lot of Angels on this list, actually. John Lackey, Houston Street, Mike Napoli, and Jared Weaver.
That's the one.
Yeah.
He's not gonna get in, but like just him being on there is cool.
Oh yeah, I mean we're getting to the time where this is kind of where we grew up and started watching Angels baseball, and these guys were on the Angels, when we were active, huge fan. Not that we're not huge fans anymore, but really big fans of the Angels going to games weekly, daily, nightly basis. Yeah. So it's good to see a lot of these guys in there. I think I was at Francisco Rodriguez's 62nd save. The record-breaking one when he broke the actual record last game of the year, 162. And I also think I was at Bobby Thigpen's breaking record. I could totally be wrong. But yeah, a lot of Angels on this list. First question before we dive into it, and I know you're going to have probably a little different opinion than I have. You see any of these guys getting votes or even, pushing to a second or third year?
I see one guy for sure getting votes. I think K-Rod gets votes. I don't think he gets anywhere near the percentage he'll need. I think he'll get enough to get on the ballot next year, though. You look at it, top 5 in career saves. He's got the record for most saves in a year. Like, he put up really good numbers. His ERA is like in the 2s, like mid 2s, I believe, maybe a little bit upper 2s, but he was a very solid closer. And I think part of what it depends on who you're talking to as well, like Hall of Fame voters. But I think part of what what some guys look at is, were they the best at their position for like 5 to 7 years? And I think K-Rod can at least say that he was the best at his position for 5 to 7 years. And I think it was even closer to 8 or 9 years, honestly. Like, he had a really good 10-year span where he was a really, really good closer. Was he the best closer in baseball? Probably not for all 10 years, but he was in that conversation for about 5 to 7 years, I think. I love Jared Weaver. I don't think he gets on. I don't think he gets enough votes.
Torrey Hunter. This is his second year, isn't it?
Yeah, this is. I think
second year for Torrey, so he'll
probably stick around, but nothing crazy.
Abreu
could be a sneaky guy where he gets more votes than we think. Like, he could finish with like 25%, which is like way more than I think anyone would even project for Bobby Abreu. Mm-hmm. But it is a relatively weak class, and people could be like, well, he did this, and they could come up with some ways to make him look like a Hall of Famer. Napoli, I think he's off the list after this year, honestly. Yeah. Like, great player, not a Hall of Famer.
No.
Lackey, I don't think he's on the list next year either. Like,
Hall of really good.
Yes. He was a part of some really special teams. He was a key piece in some special teams. You can talk about the Angels. He was the rookie who pitched in Game 7. You could talk about the Red Sox when they won. You could talk about the Cubs when they broke the curse. Like, he was part of some really, really important teams, but never that dude where it was like, oh my gosh, like, he is.
Does he have 4 World Series or 5 or 3? 3 to 5 in there, right? It's got it. One with the Angels, one with the Red Sox, one with the Cubs.
Yeah, I don't know if I think he only got one with the Red Sox, if I remember correctly. But so yeah, he was never the ace. I don't think I think him, Weave, and Napoli don't end up on the list the next year. But I think K-Rod, Torrey Hunter will probably end up getting enough votes because of the All-Star appearances and really nice guy. Everyone likes him, so he'll probably stay on. Abreu, I think. Quietly, some people will be like, oh no, and then start to look at some numbers and be like, maybe I'll vote for him, just because, like, honestly, if you really look at the ballot, you could tell me that there's only 4 or 5 names you're voting for. Correct?
That's about where I'm sitting at too. Yeah, depending on your view, depending on your stance on everything, as well. I think we can kind of break that down. I agree with everything you said there. I don't think Street's getting any votes. I think Lackey might.
Street, my fault. Yeah, same with you.
Yeah, don't think Napoli gets any votes. Lackey might be sneaky, get like 3 to 5% and make stick around for a little while. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer though. Torrey Hunter, one of the best defensive center fielders in his era. Fantastic human being as well, because we know that plays part in this voting too. So he probably sticks around. Abreu, I agree with you. I think he's sneaky. I don't know how many votes he got last year. Probably 12. I would assume 12 to 15. I would assume we probably see a little bit of a bump up because he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I think he's Hall of really good.
Yep.
And then I'm not sold on Frankie. Maybe next year, but not this year. I'll say that. So that kind of leads us into
nobody this year.
Yeah, that kind of leads us into where if we had a vote, what we would vote for. And there are some controversial votes on here this year for sure. But the one thing that I've always, I've realized with voting, and you talk to any voter, they'll probably tell you the same thing unless they don't believe it. But I do believe that most voters don't really believe that they have to vote for all 10 players. Some people do. Some people, it's like, I need to get all 10 votes out there. And I think in the past that was the case. Like, you could definitely vote for 10 guys on ballots when there was Clemens and Bonds and A-Rod and all the steroid guys. And I air quote steroid guys because there's still steroid guys on here, and there's still going to be steroid guys on here.
And one of them got in last year. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. So this year, this is probably one of the first years I'm not voting for 10. If I had the vote, I'm voting for 6, and my 6 would be Scott Rowland again, Andrew Jones again, 2 of the best defenders of all time. Andy Pettitte, I think steroids or not, he's in for me. Manny Ramirez is the same type of guy. I think steroids or not, with or without them, he is a Hall of Famer. He probably made his career a little bit longer, but I think that if you take away however many WAR you want to take away, however many home runs you want to take away, he's still one of the best pure hitters of all time. Even though when you look at Cleveland, and you can't forget about postseason, and you can't forget about just Manny being Manny. So that would be one of the reasons why I'm voting for him. Alex Rodriguez, again, it's a Barry Bonds thing for me. You're keeping one of the best hitters out of the Hall, and you just can't do that. After seeing Bonds and Clemens not make it, I'd be shocked if A-Rod made it. I would be voting for him though. And then maybe a little bit of a surprise for me is Billy Wagner. I've been off and on with him being on the list for quite some time. But probably the best left-handed reliever of all time. And that's got to say something. If you're the best at something, like you mentioned, it needs to be recognized. And Billy Wagner is probably one of the best left-handed pitchers of all time, not just one of the best left-handed relievers. I know there's a lot of lefties out there.
There's a lot of really good ones. I don't think he's in the top 10, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best relievers of all time as well. So that being said, then relievers don't get love. Exactly why I'm not voting for Frankie. I just think that he's in the Hall of really good. I don't think he's quite a Hall of Famer yet. So I don't know if you want to rattle off yours, and we can maybe debate about some names that aren't on our list, because there are a couple that I think that people are going to be.
There will be a couple. I think, and I know I've been the anti-Andrew Jones guy. I do think this is the year that you vote for him. I think that, honestly, when you look at it, what he's done, what he did, according to all these other guys, it's not even close. Like, he gets in.
Best
Scott Rowland,
center fielder of all time.
Yes.
Best defensive outfielder of all time.
Probably so. Scott Rowland, again, I can only remember the story of him and Kevin Millar talking, and Kevin Millar giving him crap about being in an all-star game, and him going, "Don't worry, I walked in my last AB to stay above 208 to make sure I made this all-star game." And it was just his last year, so they just gave him it. But I just will never forget him, with that conversation with him and Millar, just the relationship those guys had. Of course, A-Rod, I think he gets in. He will never get in, but for me, I would vote for him for sure. Like you said, Billy Wagner. I've been on the Billy Wagner train. I think that he deserves to be in. And when you really dive into the numbers between Wagner and K-Rod, the numbers are almost identical. It's just one's right-handed and one's left-handed. So because of that, I vote for K-Rod as well. Um, and then the last guy I would vote for, and it's Todd Helton. And I think what he's done, you take away Coors Field, whatever, like he was one of the best first basemen in baseball when he was playing. He might get that Don Mattingly treatment. Oh yes. Like I know there were some good first basemen, but he was top. He was an all-star. Like he's a good freaking player.
I'll say underrated for playing in Coors too.
Yeah, like that's the thing that everyone talks about with him. It's like, oh, he played in Coors. Like that's not good. Like that's no. Like we've seen it. We've seen it. Like Nolan Arenado is not in Coors anymore. He was just an MVP candidate, barely missed to a teammate. So like the Coors thing, yes, it helps, but it's
So if Roland gets out of Coors around the time that Arenado, because I think Arenado is on his way to being a Hall of Famer.
yes.
Um, do we
If
think?
Helton gets if
Yeah,
Helton
if
gets out of
if, Hel-
Coors,
if Helton goes to like say like I would assume probably about the same time that Pujols is leaving St. Louis, Helton goes
no,
to St. Louis too. I'm just saying hypothetically. I'm not saying like that'd be the case, but like Helton goes to St. Louis and puts up the same numbers. Are we having a different conversation?
absolutely. I think Todd Helton might be a first ballot Hall of Famer at that point if people are like, "Oh wow, he's putting up 40 plus bombs a year, driving over 100 every year. His WRC plus is in the 130s, like 140 range." Um, you probably would even look at his WAR being closer. What is it right now? If you look at it, it's
Is he a 50 guy on Fangraphs? I think 56 maybe.
I was looking at Baseball Reference, but
Uh,
Baseball Reference has it at 61.8, which gets him in.
very close, should we say?
Yes, 5-time All Star, 3-time Gold Glove, 4-time Silver Slugger. So like he was one of the best first basemen in baseball when he was playing. So I vote for him. I know I leave off Pettit and Ramirez. I don't know. There's just something about Ramirez and just like the way he. I don't know. There's like a respect of the game for me with him where I'm not 100% thrilled with him. I know people can say the same thing with A Rod, but I don't know. I think that they approached the game a little bit differently. And then Pettit, I don't know. Like he was good, but he was never. I don't think he was ever an ace. And I think that gets. I don't. I want to vote for people that could arguably be the best pitcher in baseball. I don't think Pettit ever was that guy that it's like, oh my gosh, like we have to face Andy Pettit today. Like he's the greatest pitcher ever. Like, yeah, he's good, but I don't know. Like it's different, facing a Kershaw, facing a Randy Johnson, a Kurt Schilling, guys like that. It's like, yeah, this is not fun. Where Pettit, it's like, okay, we're gonna be able to score against him, we're gonna be able to get on base, but like we just gotta make sure we don't get picked off because he's got one of the best lefty moves the game's ever seen.
I mean, it's like voting Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, like not fun. Jimmy
Yeah,
Herget.
Jimmy Hergy, get out of here.
I had to throw it in there. So, okay, before we let everybody go, though, just kind of we want to go through the list as well here, and just kind of explain some things because we did leave some guys off, and that's just kind of how it rolls. Bobby Bray, you haul really good. I think we agree on that.
Yep.
Todd Helton, you have your view. For me, he's haul really good. That again, like if
There's
people take
it's
something, if
fine.
people take something away from this, it's the fact that like you can have your own opinion on this, and that's kind of the cool thing about it. It's like I don't think Helton's a Hall of Famer. Well, somebody else
Mhm.
might. Nate thinks so. Same thing with Frankie. Frankie for me might like if I start diving in a little bit more than what I did this year, Frankie might be that guy. Or if Billy Wagner gets in, then it's like, oh, it opens the door for
Yeah,
some guys. But
100%.
yeah, and it 100%. If Billy Wagner makes it in, in the next couple of years or in that 10th year, then I do
Even
think
this
that
year.
Frankie gets in. Yeah, or even this year because he got close last year, 50%, I think 60%. I could be
Yeah, and
wrong. I just don't know the
there's
number.
not too many guys this year, as we talked
Yeah.
about.
Arroyo, no. Torrey, we talked about already. Scott Rowland, we both agree on.
Yep.
Carlos Beltran, I think we're leaving him off the list this year. I think that's just fair. For us, and I know we both agree on this. And I don't want to speak for both of us, but that first ballot Hall of Famer is
Yes.
special, right? Like we
It
talked about it
it's
last
a
year.
big deal.
We talked about it last year with David Ortiz. We didn't think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. We thought he was a Hall of Famer, but to be that first ballot Hall of Famer and compare him to the likes of Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, soon to be Albert
Ken
Pujols,
Griffey
Mike Trout,
Jr.,
King Griffey
Derek
Jr.
Jeter, like
There's a different level of guy there, and Big Poppy is iconic, but he wasn't those guys iconic. Like he had a
no.
fantastic postseason career. He was a DH that hit really well, who took steroids. Like to be completely bluntly honest. So Same thing goes with Carlos Beltran, why I would leave him off the list, just because of that, what happened with the Astros. I think we're probably both in agreement there. Next year he probably is on our ballot. This year, that's slapping the wrist. You're not a first ballot Hall of Famer because of that. That's a view. I think we're in agreement there, right?
Agree.
So Jeff Kent, Hall of really good for us. Jimmy Rollins that's gonna be really interesting. He's gonna stick around. I don't think he ever makes it.
I think he's getting way too much hype.
Yeah,
like
I think
he's
so too.
he's not.
Yep.
Again, for me, not one of the best shortstops in baseball. Like everyone says, Derek Jeter's the most overrated shortstop ever. You look at Derek Jeter's numbers compared to anyone in that era, and Derek Jeter blows them all out of the water. And it's like, how does this even make sense? Like you're saying Derek Jeter sucks, and then Jimmy Rollins should be in. It's like Jimmy Rollins had years where he was hit 240.
Yeah, I mean. You want to comp like Ozzie Smith or something like that and say like two really good defenders that didn't hit a lot.
Defender.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's getting overhyped, underappreciated as a player, overhyped right now for sure.
He won an MVP, so I mean he wasn't that underappreciated. But
no, Burley, I think again. I mean,
Hall of really good, sure.
Hall of really good, not a Hall of Famer. Kent, same thing. Hall of really good. Sheffield is always going to be an argument. Sheffield's going to get in after. He's going to get in on the what is it? The Veterans Committee for sure. I think that's when he gets in. There's the question mark with steroids, but I think he gets in after. I think it's Hall of really good. You start lowering the bar for some guys, and that's where it's at. It's like the Harold Baines type of thing. Like you're going to start lowering 100%. The bar. You can't do that. Houston Street, we talked about. Lackey, Matt Cain, R.A. Dickey, Mike Napoli, Omar Vizquel, one of the most overrated guys getting votes. I don't even think he should be on the list.
It's so crazy hearing that from you because 3 years ago you were the biggest Omar Vizquel fan.
No. I said it was always the Andrelton Simmons comparison to Omar Vizquel because of how good Simmons was. I wanted Vizquel. I would never vote for Vizquel, and I've said that.
I think you had him checked 1 year.
Absolutely,
I think you've had him checked 1 year.
I would not,
because we've gone back and forth arguing that one, and I'm like, Omar, he couldn't even hit my weight.
No, I'm not in on Vizquel. He played 30 years, 23 years or something like that of really good defense, and that's fine. You know, that's Hall of really good for us. Billy Wagner, we talked about. Peralta, no. Ellsbury, no. Ethier, no. Pettit, we can disagree on. That's fine. Yep. Weaver is probably going to get some votes. I don't know if he gets 5%. Worth, Hardy, Manny, and A-Rod, we can agree. We can disagree on. Everybody can have those arguments. So
I think we're in agreement on pretty much everyone except for, Manny and Pettit and K-Rod and Helton. But honestly, any of those, you look at it, it's like, well, I could see how Pettit gets in. I could see how Manny gets in, but you could also see how Todd Helton gets in. The one thing that I don't think that gets mentioned about Todd Helton enough is he was clean. Like, at least that's what, we would think. There was no rumors of that guy on steroids. I don't think that gets talked about enough because he's playing in a steroid era, putting up video game numbers. Like, I know he's playing at Coors, but he's doing it clean. So, I'm a way bigger Todd Helton fan than a lot of other people. I don't know. I think it's close.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nate, you got any final thoughts before we let everybody go?
No, I won't be that guy today.
Attaboy. Way to not be that guy today. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, making us a great show here. If you have any ideas, throw them our way. If you want to write for us, again, shoot us a message on Twitter or Instagram, wherever you guys want to hit us up at. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can follow myself on Twitter, Jared_Timms, Nate at NateGreen34, guys. And thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.